Welcome back to Season 5 of the OurView Podcast. On today's show, my guest is Wayne Forrest. Wayne is from New Zealand, and he is a transformational speaker with a spinal cord injury. Wayne shares his story and tells us why it is important that we learn how to suck the marrow out of life, living our life to the fullest. Let's get into this conversation. I would like to welcome everyone back to another episode of the OurView Podcast, where we aim to educate, raise awareness, and change the tone of conversation about disabilities. I'm happy to welcome my guest today, Wayne Forrest. Wayne is an international transformational speaker and life mastery consultant. And Wayne is joining us today from New Zealand, correct? And I am so excited and so happy to have you on the podcast today. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Arthur, for having me. It's a pleasure to have these conversations with like-minded people like yourself, mate. And
Yes.
So it's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, yes. So can you start off this conversation by sharing with us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about Wayne.
Well, I'll start at the beginning. I grew up in a country town or area where I was on the front of my grandfather's horse on a farm and immersed myself in that. I loved it. It was my first love. I always say that farming was my first love. And then one day I had to go to school, and I wasn't very happy about that. But school had sport, and I soon found that was my second love. So farming and sport growing up was a big part of my culture, and there's a certain amount of ego that comes with that as well. And I got to my 20s and I traveled around the world, and I happened to have got married, had a couple of lovely twin daughters that were only about 16 months, and I happened to be captain of my rugby team. And on this lovely Saturday, and right in the last 9 minutes of the game, I made a shocking mistake, which put me in a position that put me in danger, and I ended up rolling over onto my neck with quite a lot of weight behind me, and dislocated my C4 or 5, and I couldn't breathe. I can remember that, it was just like, oh, and I could quite easily swear. I was conscious, and terrible pain in the back of my neck. It felt like a hot poker, and someone was moving that hot poker in my spinal cord, and I couldn't breathe because all my muscles had paralyzed, and yelling out, help, help, but no one could hear me. And that was because my voice was barely a whisper. And I ended up about an hour on that field, and waiting for the rescue helicopter and the doctor to come, and they gave me some medicine, and I passed out, and kind of woke up properly about 5 days later, and
Wow.
And from that moment, my life had totally changed from this very, outdoors, physical, farming, hands-on. I had 2 businesses at the time of my accident, one running a farm, and the other one was shearing sheep. I don't know if you've ever come across that, but we cut the wool off the sheep. It's a day's work shearing sheep. It was like, the equivalent of 3 marathons in a day. It's very physical. It's a lot of energy, and that was all gone. And I had to reinvent myself. So from there, I knew I wanted to go back to my farm, which was quite isolated. And so that was my goal. And I started to move in that direction of that goal, and went from there.
Wow. That's I love that you enjoyed farming. That is like at such a young age. I think that's so cool. And I think that's it's part of what your family did, and it's like it's just it's what we do. Like we tend to fall in love with the things that our family members like, and that was your way of life. And I've never done it, but I've find it so fascinating, the shearing of sheep. such a
Yeah,
cool such a cool thing.
it's art. It's like a dance.
Hmm.
It is. There's certain moves, foot moves, and hand movements that it's a real beautiful movement of art, like dance. If you watch someone that is very good at it. So it's very addictive. As you can tell, I still love it. I
Yeah.
still love, and my accident was now 26 years ago. So there's a lot of things that have happened since that, and no doubt we'll talk about that. But it's a beautiful art form if you see it done properly.
Yeah. So you shared about your accident and dislocating. You said your C4, C5. Can you just share with everyone what that means? How it impacts your life, and can you share about your mobility and things like that?
Well, right at the beginning, Arthur, I couldn't move anything. Like I woke up and I couldn't even, my left arm wouldn't even work. And I'm not sure if this is videoed, but my left arm works quite well now.
Hmm.
So there was a process of having to do a lot of rehabilitation from not being able to work my legs, or my hands, or my arms. And that was quite a shock to start with. And it was hard work because I lost everything, all muscle tone, and had to slowly build what I could up. And I was very lucky that I didn't sever my spinal cord, I squashed it. So I did get some movement back through rehabilitation. And there's always a hope that I have, over the 26 years, got just a little bit better and better and better. But it pretty much means that I'm sitting in a wheelchair. I do not have any great movement in my fingers. And I can't move my legs. And so initially they said I'd be in an electric wheelchair for the rest of my life. I was quite determined at that point that no, I was going to push out of this hospital in a manual chair, because I was an active person and I wanted to move. And it's amazing what you focus on. It comes to light. And so I did push out of that hospital in a manual wheelchair. And I've been pushing around in a manual wheelchair ever since. Sometimes very, I look like I'm not the fastest and I'm not the strongest, but I'm moving and I like to move. Even at 52 or nearly 52 years of age, I still think I am young and moving. So I work what I've got, which isn't a lot, but I work it and I keep moving.
That's, I think it's really true what you said. Like, it's all about your mindset. And I've shared on my podcast before, and I shared with you before we started recording how I didn't know at the time, but the doctors had told my parents not to expect me to live past the age of 15. And, I guess it was just, you know, uh, that, my parents knowing that, I think they really made sure that if that was going to be the case, then I would, get to do and, like you said, move as much as possible. So it's my leg muscles are weak. I can walk with leg braces and I use crutches. But I also use a manual wheelchair. And it was one of those things where when I got the manual wheelchair, it was suggested to get an electric wheelchair. My dad was like, absolutely not. That's not happening. You can move your arms and you will use a manual wheelchair and get that movement. So, and I remember that. I remember him saying that because I was like, oh, cool, an electric wheelchair. He was like, yeah, okay, like, nice try. It's not happening. You can move, you can move your arms, so you're going to keep using your arms and moving your arms in a manual wheelchair. That's it. That's all there is to it. And so that's what I've been using ever since. And I'm 40 years old now, and I still use a manual wheelchair. And it's really interesting because I to get into my apartment, I have 5 steps I have to walk up, and people were just like, "Oh my gosh, like that has to be, so tough for you." And I said, "Well, it keeps me moving, and it keeps what little bit of mobility I have, it keeps it, active, and it helps with strengthening those muscles that I have to walk up the steps. Now, I'm not going up and down the steps 15 times a day. Like when I go out once a day. I get everything done, then I come back up the steps and I'm in the house. Unless if I absolutely have to go out a second or third time, which is hardly ever. Um, so it really is having that motivation. So I love that you shared what they had told you about the using the electric wheelchair, and you're like, no, that's not, it's not what I'm going to do. And although you said you're not the fastest, it's like you're doing it. So you're accomplishing that, and that is a really big thing. Really, really cool.
Yeah, and Arthur, one of my first goals after my accident was to go back to the farm, like I said. And I was isolated. It was on a dirt road. You couldn't get any more isolated in New Zealand, really. And but I went back and I ended up after a few years running that farm again. And this is how parents have a big influence in our life too. My father used to come up quite a lot. There was 1,100 acres to run, and he would come up and have a cup of coffee with me before we started or whatever. And I would have my jobs and I was running the farm. And one morning it was just about snowing. And, if anyone knows anything about tetraplegics, we have no thermostat with heat and cold, right? So quite dangerous, really, hypothermia can set in, all those kind of things. So it's bloody cold outside. And it comes up and he says, why haven't you moved that mob of sheep yet? And, it's just like he didn't treat me any differently. It was like, come on, you've got a job to do. How come you haven't gone and done it? And I think that kind of attitude, sets a precedent in us. And your dad did the same to you with manual wheelchair. No, but you've got arms, you're going to bloody use them. So
Right.
get out there in that chair and use it, and use those legs when you have to get up steps and stuff. And at the time, I thought, you rude, old, beep, 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 right? We won't. But I look back on that moment and I think, that's what's given me so much drive, is that upbringing, that understanding of yes, I've got a disability, but I can achieve anything because my parents expect me to achieve what I can. And yeah, that's pretty cool,
Yeah, and having that support, although at times it doesn't seem like support, like you said, you're ready to, how dare you talk to me like that. But as time goes on, I can look back and say like, okay, like, yeah, they were pushing me to be the independent person now that, lives in my own apartment. Uh, because uh, without those them pushing me, it, it could have gone a lot differently. And, not having, that support, I think is, could have led to a very different life for me now at 40 years old. So it's funny to hear you say that you had the same kind of pushing from your father too. That's really cool.
Yeah, I call it cutting the apron strings. Mums
Yes.
like to mother us, right?
Uh-huh.
And you get to a teenager. Well, I was 20 something when I had my accident, so it was a little bit different for me. But I have watched other young people grow up with a disability, and mum doesn't want to let them go,
Hmm.
and wants to still protect them and do stuff for them. And then old dad comes along and says, no, cut that apron string and get out there and live and learn to be independent. And it's so important when we have a disability that we learn to be, that independence, as you said, and live into the possibility. Before we started this, we were talking about that,
Hmm.
instead of the disability, live into the possibility of the potential that everyone's got a certain amount of potential. Live into it, or explore it, or push the possibility and look for it,
Right. Yeah. I think that's a really good segue, which is into the next topic of your TEDx talk that you did with it's how struggle helps us grow. Is that the name of it?
Yep, perfect.
It's just it was great. I'll make sure that I post the link to it down in the show notes and everything here. But I think it's a great title because a lot of times everybody has a struggle. We have all kinds of things that face us, whether we have a disability diagnosis or not. Um, and it's just what can we do with that struggle to help us become better people and also help the people around us become better people, and how can we help others who may be facing struggles, and how they can get through them. And so I really really appreciated that TED talk. That was really cool to listen to, and gave me some kind of I guess insight, and a lot of encouragement for myself, even to say like, okay, like we can, we have to just take a breath and then say like, okay, how can I face this challenge that's coming up against me now. um so I really appreciated that.
Saying that, that's the struggle, right? And I believe in every struggle there's a seed of potential that's trying to show its head. And so often it is because of the struggle that we wouldn't have seen it otherwise, right? It's trying. I believe there's an intelligence after that's breathing us, right? And there's no accident that you are in a wheelchair with spina bifida. There's certain things that we've come to experience in this lifetime, and it has an impact if we do it right on humanity and the people around us and ourselves. We grow, right? And it's a very philosophical way of looking at our injury. And believe me, at the beginning, I was angry, sad, pissed off. You name it. I had all the emotions of why me, right? And then I started getting into the self-development, and that's where the life mastery and the speaking came in. Is that I started to understand that everything is energy and everything is growth. This intelligence that breathes us, whatever you like to call it, you can call it God, universe, love. There's so many names for it, right? And it wants everything to grow and expand, and including us. And we can have an amazing impact on ourselves and everyone around us if we're willing to change the perception of poor me into, wow, what I'm either going to live life like that, or I'm going to live a life that is expensive the way we should. And yes, I might have limitations physically, but I'm going to bloody push them as far as I can go and really live and suck the marrow out of life. As there's a lovely quote called Walden by I forgot, the name escapes me, but if you look up Walden, it's done by an American, and it's about sucking the life out of sucking the marrow out of life. And I think if we take that mindset, it doesn't matter what diagnosis you have, you end up outliving what is expected, right? You don't end up living 14 years, you end up living 40 years, plus probably another 30, because you're sucking the life out of this experience and creating an amazing opportunity to grow and expand, and that has a big impact on ourselves and everyone around us.
Yes, I shared on a previous episode where a woman in my church had I was a teenager and I was born with my disability, and as you said, irritated, pissed off, annoyed, angry, and had the why me kind of thought, why me, why am I like this, why do I have this disability, and why do I have this wheelchair and these crutches and everything else. And a woman in my church, she shared with me one day, and she said, why not you? Why can't you be the one to make the changes that, to show people in a different light? And like you said, like, live life to the fullest and show people what someone with a disability can do. Why not you? I was like, oh, okay, that's a whole different way to look at it. Never thought of it that way. So even today now, living my whole life with a disability, and there are still days where I'm sure you can probably say the same, where it gets frustrating and you get angry again and all of that. But I can really push back to that moment and say, like, okay, I'm like, there's, like you said, there's no accident that this happened to me, that I was born this way. It's not an accident. It was meant to be for some reason. And I'm still living life and still trying to figure all that out. But one of my uh, I can say one of my reasons, one of my purposes is to, again, raise awareness and educate about disabilities and help people see that we we live life. We want to live life just like everybody else. It's just sometimes it's a little more difficult for us at times because of inaccessibility and other things like that, and the way that society views those who have disabilities. But to help educate people and to change the conversation about disabilities through having conversations like this, um,
Mm.
are very important and very meaningful.
And I love that, Arthur. I look at what I've created in my 26 years. Mate, there's nothing I haven't done.
Hmm.
The only thing I think I haven't done is skydive, and I'm a little bit scared about that one. But here I am at 6'3". I'm not short, and I've got no balance because, as we were talking about, as a tetraplegic, I'm paralyzed from above my nipple line, um, and I've done water skiing, I've done snow skiing, I've done whitewater rafting, canoeing. I've got, instead of just 2 kids, I've got 4 kids. I'm, married. I've run a farm. I have, and I'm not blowing my trumpet here. I'm just wanting to make people aware that that's the tip of the iceberg of what I've created in
Hmm.
26 years. If I can create it, what do you want to create? Right? With my level of limitations, with no hands, I've done all these things. So don't limit yourself to your disability. Always look to the possibility of what could be possible. And you mightn't see it at first, but if you turn around and say this very powerful question, which I use in my coaching, what would you love? Right? What would you love in this moment? And and not what can I do? What does my disability say I can do? What does my money say I can do? What does my education say I do? It's a totally different question. It's what would I love? And go into it, even though it seems impossible, right? Because if you take one step towards it, it seemed impossible for you and I to be this healthy, for you 40 years down the track and me 26 years down the track. And believe me, guys, I'm bloody healthy. I'm on no medication or very little. And yes, I use a few supplements. But at 51, I reckon I'm probably just as healthy as I would be if I was able, right?
Hmm.
Probably more so because I don't drink as much these days and do those things that sometimes when you grow up in that very egotistical world, you overindulge, like partying, drinking, and those kind of things, right?
Hmm.
So I believe I'm actually probably healthier than I was,
Yeah.
if I was able. So that this is where I'm trying to say is, mate, what would I love? And just start taking little steps towards whatever that is.
That's a great question. That's a really, really great question. I'm going to think about that for the rest of the day. That's a really good question. I love that. um, so I would like to next talk about kindness and unity. I think that is, part of your coaching, and I would love for you to discuss that and how you came up with those two words. I think those are very I think those are words that we hear a lot, and kindness and unity, be kind to each other, and all of those kinds of things. And being kind to yourself is, I think, uh, just as and more to start there. So can you just discuss that a little bit more, and what you do through that, through your group?
Yeah, mate, no worries. First of all, I think I need my coaching is I teach spiritual principles and laws for transformation and success. Right. So we're coming from the spiritual aspect of kindness and unity. And for me, especially unity is that you and I are one. We're spiritual beings, and there's how many? Nearly 8 billion of us walking around on this planet, or wheeling around on
Hmm.
this planet. But there's roughly so many souls running around, spiritual beings having a human experience. Now we're all connected. I believe we're all connected to this universe, this power. We're connected to the trees. I kind of like Avatar. How the natives are connected to the trees
Hmm.
and the plants and the animals. They are spiritually connected. I believe that we're actually the same, right? And for me, kindness and unity, that is that power that's connecting us does not recognize anything but love. Nothing but love. So if there's anything that separates you and I, that's not kindness. That is not love. You and I are brothers, my friend. And and the same with every other brother and sister out there. Some of them might be doing some rather unkind things in the world, right? But this is about creating an opportunity, learning to create. And so, sorry, I'll say again, the kindness and unity movement that I'm trying to create, or I am creating, is a movement of creating more kindness and unity in the world, where I'm speaking to you as my brother, and we are creating a difference in the world with that message. And that means, doing little acts of kindness, even though someone's wronged you or hurt you, that you can still see them as your brother and sister and help change the world into the way it's meant to be.
I love what you said about everybody. We are one. We're the same, and it's all love, that things that bring us together, and it's we're all one. I love that. That's really really so true. I'm enjoying this conversation so much. It's helping me see a lot of different things, kind of just like taking that all in, because it's so simple. I think it's so simple, but it's just to never think of it that way, but it makes sense when you explained it in such a very simple way. So I'm all in support of this movement of kindness and unity for sure. Because I think even though we're on opposite ends of of the planet here. With me, I'm in New Jersey, you're in New Zealand, and it's like we as you said, when we started, you're in the future, so it's already it's already Wednesday there. It's still Tuesday here, so it's I think that's really cool because we are still connected. We are one. So it's I'm really glad that you shared that.
Or so the kindness and unity, I've got a Facebook page at the moment that's private, and all my videos that I've been putting out are speaking that message. So if anyone's interested and wanting to, create more of kindness and unity in their own lives, and I love what you said before, because it does start with ourselves. We have this voice in our head that's often so bloody nasty that is putting ourselves down. So we do have to start with ourselves before we can actually create more in the world. So if you are interested, or if anyone is interested in joining that movement, please hit. I can give you the link to put in the show notes anyway.
Yes.
So they can join the group and go from there.
Yeah, definitely. And before we wrap up this conversation, I have just one more question / topic to talk about, and this is about the Swim for Lives, the nonprofit that you co-founded. Can you share what that is and what you all do?
Yeah, well, it started just by accident. I was doing the self-development growth stuff in the early days, and I have two younger children. So, like I said, I had the twins when I had my accident. I've got one's 12 now and the other one's 15. But when they were in their primary school age, which was round about that 10, 11, and 5 sort of age groups, they had a swimming sports in the local pool, which had a deep end that was over a lot of the kids' heads. And I couldn't get over how many 10, 11, and 12-year-olds were terrified of the deep water. And if you know anything about New Zealand, we're really just two big islands, and we have a lot of water. We have a lot of lakes, rivers, and so you're never very far away from water. And we have a lot of drownings when I started to look at the statistics. And so that's how it started. I then went to a few local people that I thought would be interested, like the odd school teacher and people that were involved in swimming, and the manager of the complex that had the pool. And we created a committee, and that's how the CHB Swim for Lives started. We aim to help all primary schools to give kids confidence in deep water, to stop drownings here in New Zealand. So it's about water safety in deep water, and educate them. And we raise money primarily, mostly, sorry, that word wasn't going to come out properly, but mostly through doing a swimathon every year. Obviously, we're in restrictions with what's going on at the moment, so we won't be having one this year, but that would have been the 7th year in a row, I think. So it's been going 7 years, and we've raised over about, I think it's about 35,000, and that's gone all into the local school age children to give them different education around keeping them safe if they find themselves in trouble in deep water.
Yeah, I think that is so important. I love swimming. It's one of my favorite things to do. So when I saw that you were a part of that and creating awareness and educating about water safety, I thought that was really I thought it was really important to mention and to bring that up. So thank you. for that. And I thank you for taking your time to share your story and all of the great things that you're doing. And um, it was great to meet you virtually and to talk with you. And I definitely look forward to staying in touch and connecting again in the future sometime.
It'd be a pleasure, Arthur, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't make you laugh too much with those sore ribs. But yeah,
I'm
mate,
okay.
it's been a lot of fun, and thank you for having me.
Oh, yes, you're welcome, and enjoy the rest of your day. I know it's the morning there, so you have the rest of your day to enjoy.
Sweet, mate.
This concludes this episode of the OurView Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on all social media platforms at OurView for Life. That's OurView, the number 4, LIFE. If you have a topic or a person, or if you are a person who would like to be interviewed for an upcoming episode of the podcast, send us a DM on Instagram, send us a message on Facebook, or you can email me at ourviewforlife@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.